One decision, 1 second slower. One technique used 1 moment sooner. That's the entire gap between the timeline we got and the timeline that could have been. The strongest sorcerer in history steps into a fight everyone told him he couldn't lose. He walks out of it in a body bag. But what if he didn't? What if the strongest just stayed the strongest? Today we're rewriting the single most important fight in modern Jujutsu Kaisen, Gojo versus Sukuna, and tracing every domino that falls differently because of it. Kenjaku's endgame, the culling game, Yuji's entire arc, Sukuna's rampage through Japan. All of it changes. Stick around, because by the end of this video, the strongest era doesn't end in a coffin. It ends somewhere much darker for everyone else. Let's set the stage first, because this fight didn't come out of nowhere. Gojo spends years as the one variable Kenjaku's entire 1,000-year plan can't account for. Every scheme, Shibuya, the merger, the culling game, only works if Gojo is removed from the board first. So Kenjaku does exactly that. Seals him inside the prison realm using Geto's body and Tungin's power, taking him completely out of commission for months while the rest of the plan accelerates. By the time Gojo breaks free, the world has already changed. Special grade curses are loose. The culling game is live, and Sukuna, freshly merged with Megumi's body, is stronger, more complete, and far more dangerous than anything Gojo faced before the seal. Their fight is, on paper, everything fans waited a decade for. 2 ceiling-level fighters, no restrictions, full commitment. And for a while, Gojo actually looks like he's winning. His 6 eyes let him read Sukuna's domain expansions with terrifying precision, and his infinity keeps closing every gap Sukuna tries to exploit. Then Sukuna adapts. He starts cutting Gojo not with brute force, but with precision, targeting the exact mechanics that make Limitless work in the first place. Piece by piece, the technique that made Gojo unbeatable gets picked apart in real time. The killing blow isn't one big, flashy attack. It's death by 1,000 calculated cuts, capped off by Sukuna slicing him clean in half. The strongest sorcerer of the modern era dies not because he was weak, but because Sukuna is, in that moment, simply operating on another level of technical mastery. It's devastating, it's narratively earned, and it changes the entire back half of the story. But let's ask the question this video exists for. What if that final cut didn't land clean? Here's the thing, Gojo's death isn't some unbreakable law of the story. It's a choice, and a few small adjustments completely rewrite it. Let's go through some of the most plausible ways he survives. Survival Path 1. The reflexive domain Gojo's unlimited void isn't fully gone until his skull is severed. And there's a real argument that a sorcerer with his instincts could trigger a split-second domain expansion purely on reflex, the same way elite fighters throw up a guard without consciously deciding to. If even a fraction of unlimited void activates in that final exchange, Sukuna's strike gets slowed, misjudged, redirected, turning a fatal decapitation into a devastating but survivable wound. Survival Path 2. Shoko's reversal. In time, Gojo doesn't die instantly in canon. There's a window. If reinforcements reach him faster, or if Shoko Yeri is already positioned nearby with reverse curse technique primed, a wound that should be fatal becomes a wound that's merely catastrophic. Gojo canonically has monstrous cursed energy reserves. Even a rough, partial reversal could be enough to keep his brain and cursed energy pathways intact long enough to stabilize. Survival Path 3. A different red on the final clash, the simplest version. Gojo, using the 6 eyes, catches the pattern in Sukuna's attacks just one exchange earlier. Instead of absorbing the finishing blow, he uses the last of his strength to either block with a partial infinity or force Sukuna's blade off aim. He still loses the fight in the sense that he's gravely injured and taken off the battlefield, but he keeps his head, and more importantly, he keeps his life. Survival Path 4. Sukuna chooses not to finish him. This one's darker and more interesting. Sukuna is arrogant enough and curious enough that he might genuinely want Gojo alive, humiliated, powerless, watching the world burn under Sukuna's rule instead of dying with dignity in battle. A villain like Sukuna doesn't always kill the strongest enemy he's ever faced. Sometimes he keeps them around as a trophy. For the rest of this video, we'll run with a blend of paths 1 and 2. Gojo triggers a fragment of his domain at the last second, takes a horrific but non-fatal wound, and is stabilized just barely by emergency reverse curse technique. He survives. He's alive, but he is not the same Gojo who walked into that fight. This is the part people underestimate. Gojo surviving doesn't mean Gojo instantly wins the war. It means the war gets messy, and honestly, more interesting, because now there are 2 apex threats moving through the story instead of one clean villain arc. Sukuna doesn't just walk away with the world handed to him. He's dealt a genuine setback. He failed to secure a clean kill on the one person capable of matching him, and word spreads fast that the strongest sorcerer is still breathing. That changes morale overnight. Jujutsu High isn't grieving, it's regrouping. Yuji isn't spiraling into the guilt and rage that defines his canon arc after Gojo's death. Instead, he's fighting alongside a wounded but living mentor, which completely changes his emotional trajectory. He doesn't need to become strong enough to avenge Gojo, because there's nothing to avenge yet. His growth becomes about becoming strong enough to fight beside him instead. Meanwhile, Sukuna has to recalibrate. In the original story, Gojo's death is what lets Sukuna operate with near total impunity. No one left on the board can threaten him one-on-one, so he can focus purely on offense, hunting culling game players, dismantling Jujutsu High, chasing his own agenda. With Gojo alive, even wounded, Sukuna has to keep part of his attention on the possibility of a rematch. Predators change behavior when they know the biggest threat in the forest isn't actually dead. Now here's where it gets really fun, because Kenjaku's entire 1,000-year strategy is built on a very specific assumption. Gojo is permanently off the board. Kenjaku's whole endgame, merging with Sukuna's vessel, engineering the perfect host body through generations of manipulation, using the culling game to cull weak sorcerers and cultivate strong cursed energy for the next evolutionary leap. Only works cleanly in a world where nobody can stop Sukuna once he's unleashed. Gojo's death is the single greatest asset Kenjaku ever secured, arguably more valuable than the merger itself, because it guarantees no one can force a fair fight against the strongest curse in existence. Take that away, and Kenjaku's timeline breaks. Think about it structurally. Kenjaku needs time. Time for the culling game to run its course. Time for cursed energy to concentrate in the right vessels. Time for the perfect sorcerer bloodline experiment to bear fruit. A living Gojo is a clock running against every part of that plan. Jujutsu High, instead of being an organization in freefall after losing its strongest asset, becomes a functioning resistance with a living rallying point. Recruitment doesn't collapse. Morale doesn't collapse. The special great sorcerers who might have gone rogue, fled, or given up now have a reason to consolidate around Gojo instead. More importantly, Sukuna himself becomes a wild card for Kenjaku rather than a guaranteed weapon. Sukuna was never truly loyal to Kenjaku's plan. He tolerates the merger because it serves his own goals. If Sukuna is forced to keep splitting his attention toward the possibility of finishing what he started against Gojo, he's less available as Kenjaku's enforcer. Kenjaku loses the guarantee that curses run unchecked while the bigger plan matures quietly in the background. It's a fight shaped by everything that happened in between. Yuji, Megumi's fate tangled up in Sukuna's vessel, the remnants of Kenjaku's schemes, all of it bleeds into the stakes of round 2. And this time, Gojo isn't walking in blind to Sukuna's precision-cutting technique. He's seen it. He's felt it. He knows exactly what it costs to underestimate it. That's the fight that ends with Sukuna defeated. Not because Gojo simply hits harder, but because the story finally lets him learn from a loss instead of dying from one. That's the alternate timeline. A Gojo who survives his hardest fight. A Kenjaku whose perfect plan quietly falls apart without its biggest guarantee. And a Sukuna who finally has to fight a war on more than one front. Would this version make for a better story? Or does Gojo's death matter precisely because it isn't undone? That's genuinely up for debate. Let me know your take down below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a like, subscribe for more What If deep dives, and I'll see you in the next one.